27-20, Colorado loses to Georgia Tech here. Really two themes from this football game. Only getting 7 points out of 3 takeaways to open the game, and then giving up 320 yards on the ground.
Yeah, there was two things we thought this team, they'd be better at running the ball and they'd be better maybe at stopping the run. They were better at one of those, and not quite at stopping the run. Georgia Tech is they're known for running the football, right? I mean, that's what they do. But I think they were probably better at it than they are most nights. And, the Buffs just got gashed. And, even when they were getting the turnovers early, they were still getting gashed. I mean, it was a weird first quarter because Georgia Tech would have 13-yard run, then they'd fumble a snap. 12-yard run, then they'd fumble a snap. Big play, and then they'd throw an interception. And so even when the Buffs were getting those turnovers, they really weren't stopping them. And really those turnovers were kind of on Haynes King and Georgia Tech and their center, not so much the Buffs forcing them. And so, they were a little bit fortunate early in the game. Georgia Tech just outplayed them tonight.
Yeah, the takeaways were exciting, but you never felt too comfortable as a Colorado fan in this football game at any point. Because
I think if you had gotten a second score off of those, you probably would. But yeah.
Well, it was good to see the ground game get going a little bit, and certainly Caden Salter adds to that. Now, Coach Prime said there were some times that Caden Salter needed to use his legs and said, hey, the reason we brought you in here is because you're a dual threat. I remember a couple of those instances, especially in the first half when it was like, there was a lot of space there to gain some yards. He showed some more decisiveness in that regard in the second half, had a really nice touchdown run after misfiring on a throw that would have been a touchdown. So kind of not the performance you wanted to see from Caden Salter, but as Coach Prime said, wasn't the biggest issue in this football game.
Yeah, and there was a couple of those throws. I mean, yes, I remember a couple of those times where he should have run the ball. There were a couple of those throws where he had wide open guys that he just put a little too much mustard on it or whatever, and just didn't complete the pass. I think those are things that he'll calm down a little bit as the season goes along. I expect that to be better. And you're right, it maybe wasn't what you want out of that, but I thought overall it was a fine debut for him. And as Coach Prime said, he wasn't the reason they lost. I mean, look, if they could stop the run just a little bit tonight, they might have won that football game. And even with giving up 320 yards. It was a tie game until Georgia Tech had the big run with 1:07 left in the game, and so they were right in this thing even with all that.
Michael Welsh is fun to watch run the football. Yeah. He had 64 yards on 11 carries, and he just runs with a lot of tenacity out there. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Philip Lindsay in that regard. He's going to maximize everything that he's got in his will to gain an extra yard. But it was a good first step getting this ground game going. You still need to get better, though, right?
Yeah, and again, if there were a couple times that Caden would have taken off, they would have had more rushing yards. But I do think that, look, you're missing Dallin Hayden tonight too. But I thought Michael Welch was a positive. I thought Simeon Rice looked pretty solid on a couple runs too. Or Simeon Price. Yeah. That was close. I thought he looked solid on a couple runs as well. And so they got something there. I think there's something to build upon there. And to Kalen Taylor, he's an exciting water bug. And we knew he was going to be an exciting player. He made some plays in the passing game, especially. But he's going to be a guy that makes some plays for this team. And we didn't see as much out of the receivers as we probably thought or want to see. Zach Atkins, though, got involved a little bit. He looked good on a couple of those catches. And so I thought there was enough positives tonight where you take that and say, yeah, this is disappointing, but there's enough here to build on and go forward.
Yeah, 11 different Buffs caught a pass today. We had kind of guessed, and I think we settled it on 8 guys. So they went even beyond that, but none of them had more than 39 receiving yards. And Omarion Miller was only targeted once in this football game. So, a little bit here and there to go, okay, when this offense, when things come together, it's got a chance to be pretty good. But it's not as – and Coach Prime said it. It's time to go now. Yeah. You have spring ball and preseason camp to get ready. So you don't want to have to use the opener as, this gelling process. But – Georgia Tech also might be one of the best teams that they play all season. I mean, they're a dark horse candidate in the ACC. It's hard to say at this point.
Yeah, I mean, look, we talked about it before the game. I mean, Haynes King, I know he's not talked about as one of the best in the country, but that's a 6th-year senior that's a third-year starter here at Georgia Tech, and he's a pretty darn good quarterback. And, Jamal Haynes is an all-ACC running back. So there's a lot of good players in that Georgia Tech team. You're right. Georgia Tech, if they're in the Big 12, I wouldn't be surprised if they won it. I mean, they might be one of the best teams that they play, like you said. And so if they play like this against that team, I think you feel good about the rest of the schedule and say, all right, clean some things up. The one thing about game one, you don't want to make snap judgments because there is no preseason. I think Pat Shurmur said it this last week. We don't have that where we can work out some kinks. Tonight were the kinks, right? Now you got to get those worked out for Delaware next week.
Yeah, you got to give Haynes King a lot of credit. That's one savvy quarterback, a tough quarterback as well. What were your thoughts on the play calling? The obviously the first drive, it's scripted, it worked out, and it looked great. They were able to sustain some drives a little bit more later, kind of midway through the third quarter and early in the fourth, but just a clunky game plan, it felt like.
Yeah, it wasn't smooth. There was a couple times that I questioned the play calling, and there's some fans who question the whole game, but they had a 3rd and 2 where they rolled out and threw the ball, and I thought, you're kind of running the ball right here. Just run the ball twice, And I think they were on the Georgia Tech side of the 50, and they wound up not getting the 3rd down. Then you wind up trying to remember the one where they tried to draw them off sides on 4th down, and then they wind up punting. I think if you just line up and run the ball, you keep that drive going. And so there was a couple moments like that, and again with the play calling, there's plays that I thought were really good play calls, but they weren't executed well, or they could have worked out better if Caden takes off and runs, or if he hits a pass, or there was a drive that started, I think it was the second drive, DeKalen Taylor drops a pass on 1st down. That messes up a drive right away. So there were some plays that were fine play calls, but they weren't executed well. So mixed bag, I thought.
And defensively, it just felt like they were on their heels defensively far too often in this football game. And once Georgia Tech kind of got that mojo, that momentum going in the ground game, it was just it was a very efficient attack that they had. It's almost like a boa constrictor, and it just kind of wears you down over time.
Yeah, frankly, they were wearing the bus down all game, but it's just once they stopped fumbling and turning the ball over, I mean, they had a good game plan, and that's what made you nervous about those first 3 possessions where you get the turnovers and you only get 7 points out of it. It's like Georgia Tech's not going to fumble the ball every single series here, so they're going to get it together, and they actually did. So that was disappointing for the Buffs, but yeah, they've got to work on that run defense. And Reggie Hughes talked to us today. He's like, look, we wanted him to throw the ball, and when they threw the ball and he was in the pocket, the Buffs did a good job. But it was just when Haynes King got out and ran, they couldn't stop him.
They rotated a lot of players through tonight on both sides of the ball, especially defensively. I mean, there were 4 different safeties that saw action in there. They were going pretty deep with that defensive line rotation. Jaheim Otis had a nice pressure that kind of led to that interception by DJ McKinney. It sounds like he might have gotten banged up after that, though. There were some bright spots individually. Martavius French, obviously, a couple fumble recoveries. But, again, kind of like the offense, this is not going to cut it going forward.
Yeah, they've got to be better, but that's the thing about college football is that's why I don't like to make snap judgments. Is like they'll be better than this. I think they're going to clean some things up, and I think next week you got Delaware that you don't want to overlook anybody, but that's a team they should beat. That should be a game where you can clean up some things and maybe get right going into a conference game the following week at Houston.
Kickers might deserve the game ball. Alejandro Mata, he's got the D on his jersey now.
Lucky on an extra point, though.
He did. And Greaves, he was an inch away from having the perfect punt. Yeah. Pretty solid overall. And then Buck Buchanan. It was always an adventure. Yeah. I kind of enjoyed watching Colorado's kickoff coverage team because they had so many guys that would just go down there with Ruckless and Abandoned. But now I noticed today, after like the third one, I was like, I can actually get some notes jotted down while Buck's out there because I know it's going to be a touchback.
It's funny. As much as we've heard about Buck Buchanan, the first kickoff landed about the middle, halfway through the end zone. I was actually kind of disappointed. I thought he put it through the end zone, but I'm joking because they haven't even had him in the end. It did get better, but yeah, that's one of those things. I think both kickers had touchbacks every single time, and so good night for the kickers, I guess, and for the Buffs, that's a weapon, right? It's a weapon in that you're not vulnerable on the kickoffs anymore, and so I think that's a big thing. We now know why Coach Prime wants it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a good game for the kicking game.
Coach Prime's first game coaching without his sons, he shared a story that Isaiah Harge came up to him and said, "Hey, let's take a walk." And as Coach Prime said, he didn't prompt that. That was Isaiah's idea. So that was kind of a cool story from an otherwise disappointing night for the Buffaloes.
Yeah, otherwise it's disappointing than that. And I will say, had a chance. I was on the field before the game. Jimmy Horn Jr., Cam Stillman, Craig, saw both those guys, and chatted with both of them, and just awesome to see them back here supporting the Buffs. And they're starting their NFL journeys, but this is a week off for them, and so kind of excited to see those guys. And they were back wearing Buffs gear, ready to go.
Coach Prime was asked about looking ahead. He says, "I'm not ready to do that. I'm going to sit in this one for a little while." So Colorado loses their season opener to Georgia Tech. They're going to host Delaware here at Folsom Field next Saturday afternoon. We'll be back with more analysis next week.